Reborn, we both learned we were with child. I smiled and gave her the coral, the luck's yours. Play the full story in one go, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. The exciting story begins right now. Congratulations, first madam, congratulations, second madam. Both madam's pulses are like pearls rolling on a plate, both are slippery pulses. A double blessing for the Marquis manor. The fawning congratulations of the manor physician exploded in my ears, accompanied by the rich, almost drowning scent of Ruineo incense, which violently pulled me back from endless darkness and excruciating pain. I suddenly opened my eyes, my fingers tightly gripping the sandalwood armrest beneath me, my knuckles turning pale from the excessive force. Before me, the carved beams and painted rafters of Rongha Hall, the stepmother dowager Madame Song on the main seat, her face beaming with smiles, and my sister-in-law Lu Qingxuang beside me, covering the corner of her mouth with a handkerchief yet unable to hide the joy in her eyes. Everything was so vividly piercing. I did not die on that snowy, freezing night, nor was Huayan's chest pierced by the enemy's long spear. I have been reborn, returning to the very day my sister-in-law, Lu Qingxuang, and I were both diagnosed with pregnancy. The heart-wrenching pain of my past life seemed to linger in my lower abdomen, a despairing sensation of flesh and blood being torn apart. Back then, I thought my own body was simply too weak. It was only after my death, when my soul refused to dissipate and I witnessed with my own eyes the hideous countenance beneath my mother-in-law, old Madame Song's mask of benevolence, and watched her and the second branch swallow the pension Huayan had traded his life for, that I realized, this had been a meticulously planned killing scheme from beginning to end. My mother-in-law is a second wife, while my husband, Song Huayan, is the eldest son of the original wife. Huayan was brave and skilled in battle. By the age of 20, he had already performed meritorious services repeatedly. He was to be conferred the title of General Dingyuan of the 4th rank on this very day and was to lead the army into battle once more. The eldest son's radiance was too blinding. It completely blinded the eyes of his stepmother, my mother-in-law. Her own biological son, my good-for-nothing second brother-in-law Song Jikong, seemed like nothing more than a pile of mud in comparison to Huayan. To destroy Huayan, she poised a poisoned butcher's knife precisely at the neck of me, the pregnant wife of the eldest son. Amida Buddha, truly the ancestors are blessing us. Old Madame Song pressed her palms together, even squeezing 2 drops of murky tears from the corners of her eyes. She turned her head impatiently to look at her confidante, Nanny Li, standing by her side. "Quick, bring out that treasure I've kept at the bottom of my chest." In but a moment, Nanny Li came out carrying a rosewood box covered in red silk. The instant the red silk was lifted, the breath of everyone in the room caught involuntarily. It was a piece of supreme red coral nearly half a person's height, crimson as blood throughout, its branches spreading like clouds, its lustrous glow shifting under the daylight streaming in. It was truly a rare and priceless treasure. I lowered my eyes, biting the tip of my tongue hard, using that fishy, rusty taste to forcibly suppress the towering hatred in my heart. It was this red coral. In my past life, grateful for my mother-in-law's kindness, I had treated it like a treasure and placed it by my bed, keeping it with me day and night. Yet I did not know that the magnificent base of that coral had long been hollowed out by someone, filled with the finest musk, and sealed tight with specially prepared beeswax. Ordinary estate physicians could never detect the slightest clue. It was like a silent, malevolent ghost, slowly devouring the vitality of the flesh and blood in my womb, ultimately causing me to hemorrhage during childbirth, leading to the deaths of both mother and child. When the tragic news reached the frontier, Huayan, already exhausted from days of fierce fighting, heard of the cruel deaths of me and our unborn child. Overwhelmed with grief, his mind and spirit fell into disarray, causing him to lose his focus on the battlefield. He was surrounded by enemy forces and pierced by 10,000 arrows. That mother and son trampled upon the corpses of our family of 3 and sucked dry the very last bloodline of the Marquis manor. Mingtan, old Madame Song beckoned to me lovingly, her tone carrying an undeniable authority mixed with warmth. Huayan is not only the heir of the Marquis manor but also a pillar of the nation, soon to march to war. What you carry in your womb is the Marquis manor's first grandson of the main line, the most noble of bloodlines. This red coral is an auspicious bestowal from the palace back in the day. It is most effective at calming the spirit and protecting descendants. Today, as your mother, bestow it upon you. You must take good care of your pregnancy, do not let Huayan down, and do not disappoint my painstaking efforts. What a fine way to calm the spirit, what a fine way to protect descendants. I slowly raised my head, my face now wearing an expression of overwhelmed surprise and humble trepidation. I rose gracefully, resting my hand on my flat stomach, and performed a solemn, deep bow. This daughter-in-law thanks mother for the bestowal. I will certainly enshrine this auspicious token in my chambers, praying day and night for my husband's safety and for the glory of the Marquis manor. Seeing me so docile, a trace of imperceptible malice and smugness flickered in old Madame Song's eyes. She personally made a gesture to support me, then turned her head to look at Lu Qinshuang, whose expression had already stiffened, and gave a perfunctory smile. Qinshuang, you are also carrying the Marquis manor's flesh and blood, so naturally, mother will not favor one over the other. Nanny Li, go to the storeroom and fetch that emerald ruby to send to the second mistress. Lu Qinshuang's fingers tightened around the silk handkerchief in her hand, her knuckles turning a pale blue with unwillingness. Although the emerald ruby was fine, compared to that priceless red coral, which symbolized supreme fortune and status, it was practically like giving alms to a beggar. She came from a low-ranking official's family and was narrow-minded and extremely vain. She usually hated it most when others compared her to me, the legitimate daughter of a prestigious noble family. Now, having our joy discovered on the same day, her mother-in-law's blatant favoritism only poured oil on the fire of jealousy in her heart. Thank you, mother. Lu Qinshuang gritted her teeth as she expressed her gratitude, but her gaze was like a poisoned hook, fixed firmly upon the piece of red coral beside me. After the morning greeting was over, I had the maid hold the heavy rosewood box and deliberately slowed my pace as I walked along the corridor leading to the rear courtyard. The autumn wind swept through the hall, brushing away the fine layer of cold sweat on my back. Before long, the sound of slightly hurried footsteps indeed came from behind. Why is sister-in-law walking in such a hurry? Is it because you received a heavy reward from mother and cannot wait to go back and show it off? Lu Qinshuang's voice carried a barely concealed note of jealousy as she walked up to my side in a few steps, her eyes once again drifting involuntarily toward the box in the maid's hands. I stopped in my tracks and waved my hand to dismiss the servants following at a distance, leaving only my most trusted dowry maid, Chenying, to stand guard at the entrance. I turned around to meet Lu Qinshuang's greedy eyes, and suddenly let out a soft sigh, a heavy shadow of concern clouding my brow. Sister-in-law, you speak nonsense. This is hardly a generous reward, but clearly a hot potato. I lowered my voice, my tone revealing helplessness and apprehension. Lu Qinshuang paused for a moment, the jealousy in her eyes turning into suspicion. What do you mean, sister-in-law? That is a piece of premium red coral from the palace. Mother favored you and gave it all to you, yet you stand here feigning modesty after gaining such an advantage? I took half a step closer to her, took her hand, and assumed an intimate, confiding posture. Sister, you are a sensible person. Why are you so confused today? My husband will soon lead the army to war. On the battlefield, swords and arrows have no eyes, and life or death is hard to predict. The child in my womb has only just settled, and this is precisely the time when I should be keeping a low profile and praying for blessings. Today, mother presented such a precious object to me in front of all the servants in the courtyard, a symbol of auspiciousness signifying the supremacy of the first branch. Isn't this putting me, and the first household, on the grill? I paused, keenly catching the flicker of deep thought in Lu Qinshuang's eyes, and continued to raise the stakes. The tree that stands out in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. If, because of this piece of coral, I attract the jealousy and schemes of others and harm the child in my womb, then I would be a sinner to the Marquis manor, and a sinner to Huayan. Lu Qinshuang pouted, her tone softening a little, but she still stared at the coral. Sister, you have considered everything thoroughly, but this was bestowed by mother. Could it be that you can actually return it? Naturally, it cannot be returned. I smiled faintly, gripping Lu Qinshuang's hand even tighter in return, my gaze revealing 12 parts sincerity and secrecy. So, after thinking it over, throughout this entire manor, the only one who can help me survive this calamity is you, sister. Me? Lu Qinshuang widened her eyes, subconsciously took half a step back, and looked at me warily. I nodded, personally took the rosewood box from the maidservant's hand, and solemnly pushed it into her arms. The heavy weight of the red coral pressed down on her arm, and I could clearly feel her body tremble slightly. Second brother stays in the capital day after day to attend to mother. You, sister-in-law, carrying this child, are the lucky star who can bring joy to mother's knees. This coral has an excellent meaning. Its entire body is crimson red, signifying vitality and fertility. My constitution is not as robust as yours, so I truly cannot suppress such heavy good fortune. But if this good fortune falls upon you, sister-in-law, it will surely bless you to bear a son in one go and secure the position of the second branch. Lu Qingxuan's breathing instantly became rapid. She lowered her head, her gaze lingering greedily over the glittering coral. To bear a son in one go and secure one's position, these 8 words were like a sharp knife, precisely severing what little reason she had left. Yet she retained a sliver of clarity. Swallowing hard, she stammered, but. This was bestowed upon you by mother. If mother were to find out. As long as you and I say nothing, how would mother ever know? I interrupted her, smiling with gentle indulgence. Just consider it a private gift from me to you, my sister. You simply take it back to your room, cover it with a brocade case, and keep it by your bedside to nourish the fetus day and night. If any of the senior maids by mother's side come to the main quarters asking about it, I will say that such a treasure is far too precious, so I have locked it in the inner storeroom for worship, unable to bear parting with it to show anyone. Who would truly dare to ransack my rooms to check? Looking into her eyes, I cast the final lure, articulating every word. Sister, you should take this blessing. Just think of it as your elder sister begging you to shield me from this ostentatious attention. Lu Qingxuan's eyes flickered wildly. Greed, surprise, and scheming intertwined in the depths of her gaze. She longed too desperately to outshine me, and to possess this treasure that symbolized the highest favor within the marquis' household. Moreover, such an opportunity to swallow the benefits entirely without making a sound was simply exactly what she desired. In her eyes, I was a pedantic and timid daughter of a noble house, so terrified by my husband's imminent departure to war that I was handing this immense advantage over to someone else for nothing. Is this really true, sister-in-law? Lu Qingxuan clutched the rosewood box tightly, her knuckles turning white from the force of her grip, as if afraid I would go back on my word. Naturally, it is true. I smiled and took a step back, gazing gently at the death warrant in her arms. Take it back quickly, sister-in-law, and be careful, don't let anyone see it. Then I thank you deeply for your kindness, sister-in-law. Rest assured, heaven and earth know, you and I know, no one else will breathe a word of this to mother. Lu Qingxuan skipped even the polite pretense of refusal, terrified I might demand the thing back the next second. Clutching the box, she turned hurriedly with her maid, her step so light it was as if she had already given birth to the Marquis Manor's eldest grandson. I stood in the drafty corridor, quietly gazing at her silhouette, flushed by the reflection of the coral. The autumn sunlight was cold and bright. I raised my hand and gently rested it on my flat lower abdomen. The bone-chilling coldness of my past life seemed to be thoroughly scattered by this breeze in this very moment. Go on, go and worship day and night that piece of coral soaked in musk. My mother-in-law plotted her entire life, yet she surely could never have imagined that the poison she personally concocted to destroy the bloodline of the eldest house would be regarded as a supreme treasure by her own favored son and daughter-in-law, kept by their pillows day and night, inhaled into their very organs. 3 days later, just as a faint layer of pale gray light began to appear on the horizon, the faint sound of the bugle calling for the roll call could already be heard from the drill ground outside the city. Inside the inner chamber, the candlelight flickered gently. I personally fastened the cold black iron chain armor onto Song Huayan for him, my thumb carefully smoothing out the dark patterns at his collar. His figure was tall and upright, like a long spear ready to pierce the vast sky at any moment. Only when he lowered his eyes to look at me would that layer of cold hardness in his phoenix eyes melt into a tenderness sufficient to drown one. Mingtan, I have wronged you. He clasped my hand in return, his large palm bearing the thin calluses formed from years of holding a sword, and carefully covered my still flat abdomen. Once I leave, it will be at least half a year, perhaps as long as a year. You are with child, yet you must not only manage this vast marquis manor but also fulfill my filial duties. If you face any difficulties, do not try to shoulder them alone. I have already instructed the steward to prioritize you in all matters. My nose suddenly stung with emotion. The tragic sight of him dying on the battlefield in my past life, pierced by 10,000 arrows, flashed through my mind like a sharp blade gouging my heart. I gripped his hand tightly, raised my head, forced back the moisture in my eyes, and replaced it with a gentle, reassuring smile. Rest assured, husband. I know how to manage affairs at home. I will never allow myself or the child in my womb to suffer the slightest grievance. I stood on tiptoe, fastened his helmet for him, and lowered my voice, enunciating every word with heavy emphasis. But you, husband, blades and arrows on the battlefield show no mercy. You need only focus on the war at the front. Whatever news comes from the capital, be it joyful or tragic, you must not lose your composure. As long as you return safely, our child and I will have our greatest protection. If anything happens to you, we mother and child will truly be meat on the chopping block in this world, left at the mercy of others. Song Huayan's expression turned solemn. He had clearly heard the gravity in my words. But he was, after all, an upright man who had spent years campaigning abroad, and he did not dwell on just how sordid and bloody the unseen intrigues of the inner household could be. He simply attributed my words to the anxieties of pregnancy. He solemnly pulled me into his arms and said in a deep voice, "Very well, I promise you. I will bring back the seal of the Dingyuan general intact, and place it in your hands and our child's with my own hands." Having bid farewell to Huayan, I stood within the high threshold of the marquis manor, watching his figure galloping away fade into the end of the long street. The last trace of tenderness in my heart turned completely to ice. Huayan, you go fight for your path to glory. I will slay the demons and monsters lurking in this inner household for you. When I turned back to Rongha Hall, the sky was already bright. Old Madame Song was sitting upright on a luohan bed, slowly fingering her prayer beads, while Lu Qingshuang sat attentively beside her, massaging her legs, her face thick with powder and unable to conceal her smugness. I suppressed the coldness in my eyes, supported by the maid Chunying, and deliberately slowed my steps to make them appear weak and unsteady as I stepped forward to pay my respects. Mingtan, has Huayan left the city? Old Madame Song looked up at me, her gaze circling my slightly pale face, a hint of secret satisfaction flashing in her eyes. In reply to mother, husband has already set off. I covered my lips with a handkerchief and coughed twice in a low voice, taking the opportunity to furrow my brows and putting on an appearance of frailty and weakness. Your daughter-in-law comes today because there is a favor I wish to ask. Oh. We don't speak like strangers in this family. Pray, tell me. I signaled Chunying to present a rosewood box. As the lid was opened, the tally tablets of the marquis manor and several strings of storeroom keys were revealed inside. Lu Qingshuang's hand, which had been massaging her leg, paused abruptly. Her eyes instantly lit up like a starving wolf spotting meat, as she fixed her gaze intently on that box. Mother is also aware that this pregnancy has been truly difficult for your daughter-in-law. These past few days, I have constantly felt tightness in my chest and shortness of breath, unable to sleep night after night. I lowered my eyes slightly, my tone sincere and frail. The physician has strictly ordered that I must rest quietly, and cannot bear the slightest mental exertion. Before he left, Huayan also instructed me to make preserving the marquis manor's heir of the first line the priority above all else. After much deliberation, I truly no longer have the strength to manage the household affairs. If the operations of the manor were delayed due to my ill health, that would be unfilial. Therefore, I earnestly implore Mother to take back the tally tablets and select another wise person to temporarily take my place. Old Madame Song's hand paused slightly as she turned her prayer beads, a gleam flickering in her eyes. Naturally, she knew why I was suffering from chest tightness and shortness of breath, unable to sleep at night, because she believed that the red coral, stuffed with the finest musk, was sitting steadily on my bedside, day and night eroding my body. The smile in her eyes instantly grew more sincere, a smug satisfaction at seeing her prey fall squarely into the trap. You child, you truly know how to put the greater good first. The flesh and blood of Huayan naturally matters more than anything. Old Madram Song sighed with feigned concern, her gaze naturally shifting to Lu Qinshuang beside her. Since your health is frail and you need quiet rest, then this heavy burden. Qinshuang, you and Mingtan discovered your pregnancies on the same day. I see that your complexion is rosy these days and your pregnancy is stable. Why don't you assist Nanny Li in temporarily managing the inner household affairs? Hearing this, Lu Qinshuang was so excited that she abruptly stood up, her voice even trembling slightly, yet she still made a show of declining. Mother, your daughter-in-law is still inexperienced. Eldest sister has managed the household for many years. I fear I won't manage it well. Sister-in-law, please don't decline anymore. I interrupted her with a smile, my gaze so sincere it was as if I were truly a frail elder sister-in-law innocent of worldly ways. You have always been shrewd and capable, and second brother is constantly by mother's side, so you know the ins and outs of this household best. With Nanny Li assisting you, you will surely manage the marquis' residence in perfect order. Moreover, your pregnancy is blessed with good fortune. Moving about more is also a good thing. These words went straight to Lu Qinshuang's heart. She was vain to begin with, and being publicly praised like this by me, how could she hold back? She immediately beamed with joy as she took the rosewood box symbolizing authority, repeatedly assuring the old madam that she would not fail in her trust. After handing over the household management, I completely shut my doors to visitors and peacefully rested in my own cloud-roaming courtyard to nurture my pregnancy. Just because I didn't involve myself didn't mean I was unaware of the goings-on outside. In fact, placing this authority to manage the household in Lu Qinshuang's hands was the most crucial part of my killing with kindness scheme. Every day, Chunning would use the pretext of fetching meals from the main kitchen to find out exactly what was going on in the second household. First mistress, you haven't seen the spectacle second mistress makes of herself these days. Chunning peeled walnuts for me while reporting in a hushed voice, her tone filled with disdain. Ever since she took charge of the household keys, the meals over at the second household have been even more lavish than during the New Year festivities. That small kitchen serves 6 meals a day, constantly changing the tonics. This morning it was black chicken soup stewed with century-old ginseng. At noon it was braised sea cucumber with fish maw. They even drink whole bowls of red bird's nest as if it were water. They say the old lady gave orders that they are to fatten up the second household until they produce a fair, chubby great-grandson. Listening to this, I couldn't help but curl my lips. I casually picked up the pregnancy-soothing tea at my hand and took a sip. Let her be. She is now the head of the marquis manor, and she is with child. What can't she eat if she wants to? When you go out, do not gossip either. If you happen to meet her, just praise her glowing complexion. This servant understands. It's just. Chunning frowned, appearing puzzled. This servant sees that second mistress is swelling up as if she's being blown up like a balloon. The flesh on her face is nearly squeezing out her features, and she pants even when walking. Don't the physicians all say that pregnant women should avoid excessive greasy meats and oversupplementation? Why is the old lady letting her carry on so recklessly? I let out a cold sneer, my eyes devoid of any warmth. Old Madame Song, of course, let her have her way. In old Madame Song's eyes, the direct grandson of the first branch was the real threat. As long as a grandson was born to the second branch, even if the child was oversized and caused a difficult birth, it was still a blessing. She was happy to see the second branch outshine the first, so she deliberately indulged Lu Qinshuang's greed and ignorance. And what she did not know was that, in addition to taking heavy tonics every day, Lu Qinshuang also insisted on sleeping with that lethal piece of red coral in her arms at night. That afternoon, the weather had warmed up unusually. I was strolling in the garden to aid digestion when I happened to run into Lu Qinshuang, surrounded by a crowd of maids and matrons who had come to admire the chrysanthemums. In just over a month, she had grown a full size larger. Her originally rather delicate face was now covered in a layer of greasy swelling, with 2 thick rolls of flesh piled beneath her chin. She was clad in silk brocade worth of fortune, yet it was stretched out of shape, her whole person exuding an air of grotesque bloating and manic excitement. But what sent a chill through my heart was the strange, subtle fragrance drifting on the breeze as she drew near. It was the scent of premium musk mixed with beeswax after long periods of fumigation, a smell that lingered on her clothes and refused to dissipate. It seemed she truly regarded that piece of red coral as an ancestor to be worshipped, keeping it with her day and night without fail. "It is rare to see you out and about, sister-in-law. Is your health fully restored?" Lu Qingchuang leaned on her maid's hand, looking down at me with haughtiness, her eyes filled with the arrogance of one who has risen to power. She glanced at my still slender figure and slightly protruding belly, then patted her own stomach, which was now as round as a basket, unable to suppress the mockery curling the corners of her lips. "Thank you for your concern, sister-in-law. It's the same as ever. I'm just barely holding on." I took half a step back, subtly avoiding that cloying fragrance, yet my face was plastered with envy and ingratiation. "But you, sister-in-law, your bearing is truly different now. Your belly looks fully 2 sizes larger than mine, and your complexion is so rosy, one can tell at a glance it's the sign of a blessing, a big chubby grandson for the Marquis manor. No wonder mother dotes on you so. All the best things are saved for the second branch." Lu Qingchuang was exceedingly pleased by my undisguised flattery. She smugly rubbed her belly and laughed without restraint. "Sister, please say no more. This is all thanks to you for giving up that good fortune to me. Now, every day when I open my eyes, I feel refreshed. I find the good things mother rewards me with very easy to digest, and this child is growing strong inside me. Then it is simply sister-in-law's destiny to enjoy such great fortune." I smiled with increasing gentleness, though my eyes looked upon her as if she were already dead. "In that case, you should take even better care of yourself. Don't be sparing with the silver for such great tonics like ginseng and antler velvet. The keys to the storehouse are in your hands. For the golden grandson in your belly, it is only right that you consume more of them." "Naturally. I don't need you to teach me. I certainly wouldn't shortchange this child," Lu Qingchuang snorted coldly. Like a proud peacock, she swept away in grand style, surrounded by a crowd of servants. I stood beside the blooming autumn chrysanthemums, watching coldly as she walked away with heavy steps, her figure slightly staggering due to obesity, the frost in my eyes gradually condensing into substance. Excessive tonification leading to an oversized fetus is a major taboo during pregnancy. Coupled with the relentless, intense stimulation of top-grade musk day and night, it causes a dual deficiency of qi and blood in the mother's body and damage to the womb. The combination of these 2 factors means that even an immortal would find it difficult to save her. "Lu Qingchuang, since you desire this overwhelming wealth so much, then you should endure it well. The fire has been fed with enough fuel, waiting only for a catalyst to burn everything to ashes." August 15th, the Mid-Autumn Festival. Inside Rongha Hall, colorful glazed lanterns hung high, and the floor heating had been lit early, making the room as warm as spring. The 8 Immortals table was laden with delicacies from land and sea, while the sweet fragrance of osmanthus wine permeated the air. This should have been the most joyous scene of the year in the Marquis manor, yet to my eyes, it seemed only to reveal a pervasive, absurd lifelessness. Supported by Chunying, I took my seat at the lower end with unhurried grace. Tonight, I wore a simple, moon-white silk jacket with a straight collar, devoid of any makeup, which made my figure appear even more frail and my complexion sickly pale. In stark contrast to me sat Lu Qingchuang across the table. In just 3 short months, she had grown so fat that she looked like a different person. The bright red brocade robe embroidered with 100 sons and 1,000 grandsons hung upon her, failing to convey the dignity of a matriarch and instead making her resemble a rice sack forcibly stuffed full, so bloated that her neck was no longer visible. Even though she had applied a thick layer of powder today, it could not hide the dark circles beneath her eyes, the look of one whose vitality was being drained away night after night, sleeping amidst the finest musk. "Mother, this is soup that your daughter-in-law specifically instructed the small kitchen to prepare for you, using century-old ginseng and supreme red bird's nest. Please, have a taste." Lu Qingchuang moved her body with difficulty, supported by 2 maids as she stood up. Holding a white jade bowl with silk patterns, she eagerly approached old Madame Song. Old Madame Song smiled so broadly that the wrinkles on her face smoothed out, repeatedly saying good as she took the soup bowl and sipped it. Yet her gaze drifted towards me, seemingly absent but not quite, and she raised her voice. Qin Shuang is such a filial child. Managing this vast marquis manor is already hard work, and she is carrying my golden grandson, yet she can still look after this old woman everywhere. Unlike some people, whose own bodies are uncooperative and who don't even know how to say anything pleasing. Beside her, my second brother Song Jikong was drinking with his legs crossed. Hearing this, he also sneered with a sidelong glance. That's true. My wife's pregnancy is quite robust, unlike eldest sister-in-law, who is sickly all day long. Don't tell me she'll just scatter away with a gust of wind. I lowered my eyes, staring at the small plate of osmanthus cakes on the table before me, as if I hadn't detected the sharp barbs hidden in their words at all. Mother is right. It is I who am too thin of fortune, far from possessing the good fortune that my sister-in-law enjoys, I replied softly, taking the opportunity to cover my mouth with a handkerchief and suppress a few coughs. Seeing me act so humble and submissive, the smugness in Lu Qinshuang's eyes nearly overflowed. She supported her waist as she sat back down, picked up the bowl of thick and ginseng blood swallow soup before her, and drank it down in large gulps. Sister-in-law, don't be too discouraged. As long as you nurture the pregnancy dutifully and meddle less in things that don't concern you, you will surely be able to. Before Lu Qinshuang could finish her sentence, her voice abruptly cut off. Her face, which had been wearing a smug smile, twisted and distorted in an instant. Her eyes widened abruptly, and the white jade bowl in her hand fell with a snap onto the green brick floor, shattering into pieces. The thick ginseng soup splattered everywhere. Ouch! A shrill scream pierced the music of the Ronghe hall. Lu Qinshuang clutched her surprisingly large belly tightly with both hands, and as if her bones had been drawn out, she slid straight down from the rosewood round chair. My belly! It hurts. It hurts so much. She curled up on the ground, her features squeezed tightly together in pain, while cold sweat rolled down her forehead like soybeans, washing the heavy powder on her face into deep, crisscrossing gullies. Qin Shuang! Wife, what's wrong to you? Song Jikong was so frightened that he threw down his wine cup and rushed over, scrambling and crawling. Old Madame Song was even more terrified. She stood up abruptly, knocking over the wine cup beside her, and screamed with a shrill voice, "Why are you still standing there? Go fetch a doctor. Go get the family physician quickly." The entire Ronghe hall instantly fell into chaos. The maids and matrons screamed in panic. I sat in my original place, watching this scene with cold indifference, and my breathing did not falter in the slightest. Just then, sharp-eyed Nanny Li suddenly pointed at the hem of Lu Qinshuang's skirt and let out a blood-curdling scream. Blood! Old madam, the second mistress is bleeding. Following the direction of her finger, they saw a pool of glaring dark red liquid slowly seeping out from under the crimson satin skirt Lu Qinshuang wore. The blood trickled along the cracks in the green brick floor, a shocking sight, exuding a strong, fishy sweet smell. Old Madame Song felt her vision go black and nearly fainted. That was the grandson she had longed and hoped for, the one she was counting on to crush the first branch. Where is the doctor? Why isn't the doctor here yet? Song Jikong held Lu Qinshuang, his hands covered in blood, screaming in terror, completely beside himself. Amidst excruciating pain, when Lu Qinshuang saw the blood beneath her, extreme terror and despair erupted in her eyes. She struggled to lift her head, her bloodshot eyes frantically searching the crowd, before finally fixing rigidly upon my face. Jealousy, unwillingness, and the instinct to shirk responsibility completely devoured her reason in that instant. It's you. Cui Mingtan, you harmed me. Lu Qinshuang exerted all her strength to reach out a blood-stained hand, pointing at me like a vengeful evil spirit, screaming shrilly, "You were jealous that I gained control of the household, jealous that my pregnancy is more secure than yours. That blood swallow. That blood swallow was left when you handed over the storeroom last month. You drugged it. You wanted to kill my child." At these words, the entire room erupted in an uproar. Old Madame Song's originally panicked expression instantly froze, then transformed into a poisoned blade that slashed viciously at me. She strode forward, pointing down at my nose from her superior position, and shouted harshly, "You poisonous woman. Despite my marquis manner treating you with courtesy, you actually dared to secretly harm my precious grandson. Someone, take this poisonous woman down. Several stout servant women immediately pounced upon me with ferocious looks. I'd like to see who dares touch me. I slammed my hand heavily on the table and stood up abruptly. Although my figure was slender, the heritage of my noble background and the composure gained through 2 lifetimes made my voice resonate with power, carrying an undeniable pressure. Swept by my piercing gaze, those servant women actually stopped in their tracks in unison. Sister-in-law is in such pain that she is lashing out with incoherent words. I can let that pass, but surely mother is not confused as well? I met old Madame Song's gaze, which looked as if she wanted to devour someone, without the slightest fear, my voice as cold and clear as shattered jade. On the day the household accounts were handed over, it was done facing the storeroom ledgers, and Mammy Lee, by your side, mother, personally inspected and recorded every item. Every tail of bird's nest and every ginseng root was checked with absolute clarity. Since that handover, the gates to our first branch's courtyard have been tightly shut. We haven't even neared the door of the main kitchen. For these past 3 months, the ingredients for the second branch's small kitchen were all fetched from the storeroom by sister-in-law's own trusted confidants. I paused, my gaze sweeping over Lu Qingxuang, who was rolling on the ground in agony, and the corner of my mouth curled into a faint, mocking sneer. Furthermore, those were highly nourishing century-old ginseng and premium blood bird's nest. Such intensely heating substances. The physician long ago instructed that pregnant women must use them with caution. Yet to prove a point, sister-in-law consumed these tonic medicines as if they were daily meals, single-handedly reducing herself to this state. Now that she is reaping the bitter fruit of her own actions, she seeks to drag me, her elder sister-in-law, down to be the scapegoat? You're talking nonsense. You harmed me secretly. Lu Qingxuan was in so much pain she was nearly fainting, yet she still clung to me stubbornly, because deep down she knew that if the child was lost due to her own gluttony, the old madam would surely skin her alive. Whether I am speaking nonsense cannot be determined by the mere flap of your lips. I looked at her coldly, then turned to old Madame Song, my tone resonant and unyielding. Since mother and sister-in-law are convinced that I poisoned someone, let us get to the bottom of this. If we use a physician from the residence, I fear it would not only show a lack of propriety on my part but also fail to uncover the ugly truth lurking behind this. I took a deep breath and sternly ordered Chen Ying behind me, take my calling card and go to the Imperial Medical Institute immediately. Invite Imperial Physician Mo Qinghua to the manor. I want to see exactly whose sin this tragedy of the miscarriage tonight is. Upon hearing the 3 words Mo Qinghua, old Madame Song's eyelids twitched almost imperceptibly, and a trace of genuine panic finally flashed through her eyes. Imperial Physician Mo Qinghua was the most skilled in medicine, yet also the most eccentric and upright physician in the Imperial Medical Institute. He never curried favor with the powerful and recognized only hard facts and medical principles. In my past life, my mother-in-law, old Madame Song, had feared his sharp eyes that could see through all secrets and dark secrets. That was why she had done everything in her power to obstruct Huayan from inviting him to examine the body when handling my afterlife affairs. In less than half an hour, Imperial Physician Mo stepped into the blood-soaked Ronghe Hall, carrying his medicine chest. Physician Mo, you've finally arrived. Please take a look at my wife, and that bowl of poisoned bird's nest. It must be the work of that poisonous woman from the main house. Song Jikong shouted, pointing at the mess on the ground as if clutching at a straw. Physician Mo didn't even spare him a glance, walking straight to the scene of the crime. He first carefully examined the shattered white jade bowl and the ginseng soup residue on the ground, his brow slightly furrowed. Then, holding a handkerchief between his fingers, he took Lu Qingxuang's pulse. By now, Lu Qingxuang was in such pain that she no longer had the strength to scream, leaving only rapid gasps for breath. The blood beneath her had soaked nearly half of the precious red carpet. Absurd! Physician Mo abruptly withdrew his hand, his graying beard trembling with indignation. There isn't a trace of poison in this bird's nest soup. It contains only potent ingredients like aged ginseng and deer antler, highly heating substances. The second mistress knew no restraint during her pregnancy, allowing the fetus to grow enormous, which already made a difficult birth highly likely. But what truly caused her sudden hemorrhage and the stillbirth tonight is the finest quality musk. Musk? Old Madame Song cried out involuntarily, her face turning instantly pale as paper. How is this possible? The inner quarters of the Marquis Manor have always strictly forbidden such dangerous drugs. She is a pregnant woman. How could she possibly come into contact with musk? Physician Emma let out a cold laugh, his sharp gaze sweeping over Lu Qingxuang's brocade robes, soaked in cold sweat. Old madam, do not deceive yourself. The scent of musk on second mistress is so strong that even an old man like me can smell it clearly. This is certainly not the work of a single day. It is clearly the result of placing it by her pillow and bed day and night, accumulated over years. This top-grade musk has a potent medicinal property. Not only will second mistress be unable to save this pregnancy, but in this life, I fear she will find it difficult to conceive ever again. These words were nothing short of a bolt from the blue. Lu Qingxuang's originally dilated pupils suddenly constricted. Like a living corpse suddenly rising from the dead, she jerked her head up, her dry lips trembling frantically. You. What did you say? Difficult to conceive ever again? No. This is impossible. The only thing I have offered worship to daily is. Her voice came to an abrupt halt, as if she had suddenly realized something. A pair of bloodshot eyes stared fixedly into the void, the fear and despair at the bottom of her eyes gradually intertwining into a tangible madness. I stood to the side, revealing just the right amount of shock and distress, and spoke up at the opportune moment. Sister-in-law, what exactly did you put in your room? This is a matter that concerns the flesh and blood in your womb and the lineage of the second branch. Coral. That red coral. Lu Qingxuang seemed as if my words had flipped some sort of switch, and she screamed hoarsely, someone. Go to my room quickly, smash that red coral. Smash it. Several maids looked at each other in dismay, not daring to act rashly. Old Madame Song's body suddenly swayed, and she only avoided collapsing to the ground because Mammy Li held her up tightly. Her hands, usually so well maintained, were now shaking like sieves, and she shouted sternly to stop her, "Shut your mouth. Have you lost your mind? What could possibly be wrong with a piece of coral? Do not falsely accuse the innocent here. Whether it is a malicious frame-up, we will know once we take a look." Physician Mo could not stand these underhanded matters of the inner chambers where lives were treated as worthless grass. He immediately snorted coldly and directly ordered his accompanying medicine boy, go to the second branch's inner chamber and fetch the item the second mistress mentioned. In just a moment, that exquisite piece of glowing red coral was moved to the center of the main hall. It remained as red as weeping blood, breathtakingly beautiful. Physician Mo stepped forward, lowered his head to sniff it, and his face completely darkened. He took a small silver hammer from his medicine chest, and without hesitation, aimed it at the magnificent base and struck it viciously. With a crisp snap, a fissure split open the base. Imperial Physician Mo used a silver knife to scrape away the beeswax sealing the top. In an instant, a rich, pungent fragrance swept through the entire Ronghe hall. Inside the hollowed-out base, it was packed full of blackish-brown powder. Top-grade large particle musk. The amount is heavy enough to cause 10 pregnant women to miscarry. Imperial Physician Mo slammed the silver knife heavily onto the table, laughing in his extreme rage. What a fine auspicious treasure for calming the spirit. In my decades of practicing medicine, I never knew such a sinister, lethal weapon was part of anyone's rules. The evidence was irrefutable. Song Jikong stared blankly at the pile of musk, his mind a complete void. Meanwhile, Lu Qingxuang on the ground, upon seeing the powder, finally let out a shrill, tragic laugh. She struggled in the pool of blood like a mad dog, crawling towards old Madame Song, extending her blood-stained fingers to tightly grip the corner of the old lady's skirt. It was you. You old poison woman. You personally said this coral could protect descendants, and you personally bestowed this death warrant. You never intended to reward my sister-in-law. You wanted to use this thing to kill the direct grandson of the eldest branch without anyone knowing. Although Lu Qingxuan was foolish and greedy, at the critical moment of life and death, she finally saw through the truth of this deadly trap. I retreated half a step, covering my mouth tightly with a handkerchief, my body trembling uncontrollably, tears rolling down like broken pearls, my voice filled with despair and disbelief. Mother. Is what sister-in-law says true? This red coral was something you personally bestowed upon your daughter-in-law that day in front of the entire household when the pregnancy was diagnosed. You said it was an auspicious sign from the palace that could ensure Huayan's safe campaign and protect the flesh and blood in my womb. If I hadn't, out of gratitude for sister-in-law often staying by your side to fulfill her filial duties, privately yielded this blessing to her, wouldn't the one lying in this pool of blood today with no way out be me? Every word I spoke was weeping blood, every sentence piercing the heart, thoroughly exposing all the foreshadowing at this very moment. Everyone in the courtyard gasped in shock. To fight for the title, the stepmother actually resorted to such vicious means to murder the heir of the late wife's eldest son. If the first daughter-in-law hadn't inadvertently given it away, the first branch would have been left without descendants today. You're spouting slander. Old Madame Song pointed at me, trembling with rage, her mask of benevolence completely torn away, her face hideous like a vengeful spirit. It was you. You, this lowly woman, deliberately set a trap to frame me. You knew all along there was something wrong with that coral, so you seized the chance to pass it to Qingxuan. You're the one who killed my own grandson. Mother, how ridiculous you sound. I straightened my spine, my gaze piercing into her eyes like a sharp sword. This coral came from your private storeroom, and the beeswax seal on it is an old piece. In this entire household, who could tamper with it right under your nose? You say I knew about it beforehand? Did I force you to bestow this musk-soaked coral upon me? Did I force my sister-in-law to take tonics every day, nourishing the fetus until it turned out like this? I took a step forward, staring down at her pale face, and coldly uttered my final words. He who practices injustice will inevitably bring about his own destruction. Mother, this poisoned blade of yours has ultimately pierced your own heart. The absurd tragedy of that mid-autumn night finally came to a close after an overnight interrogation by several elders of the Song clan. Physician Mo was of such an upright and unyielding temperament that even with old Madame Song's formidable influence, she could not silence the murmuring tongues of the Imperial Medical Office. The murder of the legitimate heir of the first wife was a capital offense intolerable to any noble clan. To preserve the dignity of the Marquis of Dingyuan's manor, the clan patriarch, leaning on his cane, personally ordered that old Madame Song be invited to the secluded family temple at the back mountain. Ostensibly for praying and meditation, it in reality stripped her of all honor and freedom. She was forbidden to step beyond the courtyard gates without summons. As for Lu Qingxuan, that violent hemorrhage not only took away the golden grandson she had so proudly boasted of, but also completely destroyed her womb. When the doctor shook his head and declared that she would never be able to conceive again in this life, she went completely mad. Within the courtyard of the second branch, her shrill cries and maniacal laughter echoed all day long. Meanwhile, her second brother Song Jikong, who had once been inseparable from her, after a brief period of despondency, lost no time in bringing one beautiful concubine after another into the household. In this deep, labyrinthine residence, Lu Qingxuan became an utter outcast, dragging out her endless days amidst boundless regret and jealousy. The demons and monsters within the inner household have finally been burned away to nothing by a single fire. In the blink of an eye, the spring breeze melts the snow, the winter plum blossoms fall entirely, and the capital welcomes the sunny third month of spring. On the day the 800ly urgent dispatch of the great victory at the border arrived in the capital, I was leaning against a rosewood chaise lounge by the window, personally embroidering a bright red belly band for the child in my womb. Urgent hoofbeats came from the front courtyard along with the irrepressible cheers of the servants. My hand holding the embroidery needle trembled violently, and a bead of bright red blood seeped from my fingertip, yet my heart, in that moment, finally settled firmly back in place. The door curtain was suddenly flung open, carrying the chill of early spring and the dust-laden harshness of a long journey. Mingtan! Song Huayan strode into the inner chamber, not even having time to remove the black iron armor that was covered in scratches. He stood stock still 3 paces away from me. His usually cold and hard phoenix eyes were now bloodshot and filled with an inescapable sense of surviving a disaster. He looked at my high, bulging abdomen, then at my face, still gentle and full of life. His Adam's apple bobbed violently, yet he dared not take another step forward, as if fearing that everything before his eyes was merely a phantom from a dream. "Husband, you have returned." I set down the embroidery frame and stood up with the support of chunnying, my eyes instantly growing warm. Song Huayan woke as if from a dream, rushing forward in great strides and carefully gathering me into his arms. His arms held me tight, yet he deliberately avoided my stomach. The chill of his iron armor seeped through my thin clothing, yet I felt incomparably warm. "I know everything." He buried his head deep in the crook of my neck, his voice terribly hoarse, trembling with the lingering fear of what might have been. "Mingtan, I am sorry. I never knew the scheming within this inner household could be so vicious. That red coral. If not for your vigilance, if not for your cleverness, when I returned to the manor today, I fear I would have been faced with nothing but the spirit tablets of you and our child." He had spent years campaigning on the battlefield, his heart open and aboveboard, yet he was not a foolish man. When all the clues were pieced together, he could naturally see through the malice of his stepmother behind that statue of red coral, and realize what a hard battle I had fought, step by step, on this battlefield without smoke or gunpowder. It is all in the past. I raised my hand to gently stroke his rough temples, dissolving all the despair of having my heart pierced by 10,000 arrows in my past life, and the relief of having my great vengeance avenged in this one, into this single, gentle embrace. "I told you, as long as you return safely, our child and I have our greatest support. Huayan, our family can finally live with our heads held high." A hint of suppressed moisture rose in his eyes. Solemnly, he pulled out the gold seal of the Dingyuan general, stained with the smoke of war, from his bosom and presented it before me with both hands. "I, Song Huayan, swear here, I will never take a second wife in this life. The power of life and death in this marquis manor, and the very life of Song Huayan, belong to Mingtan alone. If I break this oath, may heaven and earth not tolerate me." On the 5th day of the 5th month, the Dragon Boat Festival, I was in the birthing room of Chian Courtyard. Listening to the lively bustle outside the window, I exerted every ounce of strength to give birth to a full-term, healthy baby boy. When the midwife, weeping with joy, brought the wailing infant before me, Song Huayan disregarded worldly taboos and charged straight into the birthing room, thick with the scent of blood, to tightly grasp my sweat-drenched hand. Gazing at the rosy, vivid little face in the swaddling clothes, and then at my husband by the bedside, his eyes slightly rimmed with red and filled with deep affection, I momentarily recalled the gloomy, bone-chilling dry well of my past life, and that bowl of heartbreak poison forced down my throat. Those unforgettable agonies have finally, in the sunlight of this life, completely vanished like smoke. I, Cui Mingtan, crawled back from hell. Not only did I tear apart those hypocritical and vicious faces, but I also fought with my own hands to carve out a path to boundless glory and splendor for myself and my flesh and blood. A gentle breeze brushed the window lattice, bringing a fresh scent of gardenia blossoms. The world of this marquis manor has, after all, seen a change of sun and moon. The story has come to an end. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment. Thank you.